Atlanta Press Club's biggest fundraiser of the year. And it's also our most visible event, where we truly put journalists in the spotlight to honor their work. Simply by being here this evening, you are helping us support a free and fair press and recognizing along with us the importance of integrity of an industry that is constantly under fire. Thanks to supporters like you, the Atlanta Press Club is still able to pursue its mission to serve the evolving professional, educational, and social needs of our media community, foster journalistic excellence, and advance the public's interest in and understanding of a free press. And we could not do it without you here tonight. So we thank you. I would also like to say a special thank you to our diamond sponsors, Home Depot and the Georgia Power Foundation, our gold sponsors, Cox Enterprises, Tom and Edwina Johnson, Norfolk Southern, and WSB TV Cox Media Group. And to our silver sponsors, John and Monica Kaufman Pearson, Georgia EMC, Edelman, City of Brookhaven. I love that. Okay. And WABE. Oh, okay. Yeah, I would not have thought City of Brookhaven would be louder than WABE, but okay, we got it. You will also notice in tonight's program a page with all of our annual sponsors listed. Many of them are here tonight, and we thank you again for being part of this evening. I would also like to recognize all previous Hall of Fame inductees that are here with us tonight. I know there are many. Could you all please stand so that we could recognize and honor you? Amazing. And we are so excited again to honor our 2022 inductees, Lorenzo Lowe Jelks, Mary Louise Kelly, Jovita Moore, Russ Spencer, and Dick and Rebecca Chase Williams. But before we honor them, I have the very special privilege of getting to honor someone that I have gotten to know in just my 6 short months here at APC. He is our chairman of the board, Ken Foskett. And I'm going to bring him up here as he's going to get some remarks. But Ken, I would also like to present you with the 2020-22, as he has been the chairman for 2 years, chairman of the board award. Ken, if you know Ken, you know that he is the ultimate professional. His kindness and his leadership and his commitment to the industry is unmatched. And I truly could not have transitioned into this role as smoothly as I have, hopefully, without your leadership and support. So Ken, we honor you tonight, and please come up to give your remarks.
Okay, so this was not in the script that I got, so thank you, Julia. Thank you all very much. It has been a real honor to serve this organization, and on behalf of our board of directors, I'd like to welcome you here. I want to congratulate our inductees, their families who are here tonight. You know, the Atlanta Press Club hosts a lot of events. This is by far my favorite. It's the most fun, and it is the most inspiring. And I promise you that as you listen to the stories of the journalists that we are honoring here tonight, you will be filled with inspiration and pride for this public service that we call journalism. Before we get to the main event, I would also like to highlight another important aspect of the Atlanta Press Club's work, namely the political debates that we sponsor through the Loudermilk Young debate series. We've been doing this now for many, many years. This year, and I need to refer to my notes here, this election cycle, the club organized 14 primary debates, 7 primary runoff debates, 16 general election debates, including 9 for statewide office. And if you're doing the math, that is 37 debates, the most that any single organization has sponsored of any state in the country. A committed team of AJC, of Atlanta Press Club, I'm sorry, a little slip there, worked at the AJC for a long time. A committed team of Atlanta Press Club journalists, all volunteers, work to stage these debates. They serve to select the moderators and the panelists for all of these debates, and all of those panelists and moderators are volunteering their time too. Lori Strauss, who served for 12 years as the club's president, is the lone person in charge of coordinating all of the moving parts, and works closely with our volunteer journalists, our executive director, Julia Boyd, and our broadcast partner, Georgia Public Broadcasting. At this time, I'd like Lori and everyone who's here who has worked on the debates to stand in the room here. Yeah. Anybody who works on debates, please, and give them a round of applause. Thank you. This is an extraordinary public service. All right, now it's my pleasure to introduce another Atlanta Press Club volunteer, Jeff Hullinger. Jeff is one of Atlanta's best known and most versatile broadcasters. He has won 21 regional Emmy Awards and has been inducted to the Southeast chapter of the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences Silver Circle. Jeff is a member of Leadership Atlanta 2019 and has received Murrow's, Best of Gannett, and AP Awards as a TV anchor and as the radio play-by-play voice of the Atlanta Falcons. He has also been named Best of Atlanta multiple times, has won Green Eye Shade and Georgia Sportscaster of the Year Award by his peers statewide. Jeff is now WXIA TV NBC Atlanta. Let's welcome Jeff Hullinger.
It is great to be here, and thank you for that warm introduction. It took me a while to write it, and you didn't read the other 4 paragraphs that I had written, but if anyone would like to talk to me afterwards, we can share that as well. It is a great privilege to be here to celebrate these incredible journalists who have impacted our city, our state, our region, and the country and the world as well. It is the 12th year for the Atlanta Press Club Hall of Fame event, which honors journalists, the great journalists, the careers that have meant so much to so many for so very, very long. And these are people who have had an impact in our state that are recognizable names to everyone. And we want to recognize our 6 inductees. For each of these inductions, we're going to play a short video about the honoree, and then next we will invite the presenter to come to the stage and to give a brief speech, and then present the award to the inductee or family member who will come to the stage to accept the award. So our first inductee of the evening is a very special one, Jovita Moore.
Unflappable. That's how Elise Durham described her former WSB TV colleague, Jovita Moore. The two started at the station the same week in 1998, and Moore's professionalism quickly shone.
She was just unflappable and reliable and steady. And that's what you need, particularly in breaking news situations, when things are flying and coming at you from all directions, and you've got somebody like me talking in your ear while you're speaking. You got to have somebody that keeps it steady, because you know, the public is relying on that.
We're at the East Point Police Department where officers are ready to be.
As a weekend reporter for WSB, Moore earned her street cred early on.
At 58 years old, Harvey Jones has to learn to walk again.
One of her first assignments was a live shot from the scene of a hit and run in Cobb County, which she reported from the middle of Chastain Road with cars whizzing by.
Says he crawled over to a median and with his 2 broken legs tried frantically to wave down someone to help him. He says it was about 30 minutes before anyone stopped.
Moore went on to win 9 Emmy Awards for her work, covering everything from cystic fibrosis
Now off the brake, floor it, keep it down.
my God.
Keep it down,
Oh
keep
my
it down, keep it down.
to race cars,
Brake hard.
to the opening of the National Center for Civil and Human Rights. She quickly became a trusted name in news, and it was no surprise when she took over for Monica Pearson as evening anchor in 2012.
You know, I've said repeatedly that if I can just make a fraction of the impact that Monica has made, you know, I'll be happy with that, and it'll be my honor just to try.
She grew to the position that she ended up in and had the respect of the other journalists in that newsroom because of that. You know, she wasn't a Johnny come lately, is that how they say it? She was not new to this. She had come from Memphis, so this was not her first job. And she worked hard to learn Atlanta, to get into the community, to know the stories, to know what's going on where, and pronounce streets correctly, all things that we take for granted. But it's very important if viewers are to trust you. And she was a very trusted source for news in this city.
Born in New York, Moore had plenty of chutzpah. She loved the music of Jay-Z, spending time with her precious family, supporting women in the community, volunteering with Meals on Wheels, and being the face of news in Atlanta, the city she had loved since childhood.
And at some point, I decided that if I was ever to live outside of New York City, I would want to live in a city like Atlanta because it seemed like such a place that had so much going on, such a positive place. And of course, to me, in New York, it was like the Mecca for black people because you had a black mayor, you had black schools, you know, you had these black campuses with black students. And it was just one of those places that I was like, Atlanta must be a really great place to live. And you would see black families, you know, and it was always like in an Ebony or a Jet or something. And so that was one thing. And it was just some place that I was always interested in.
Jovita wanted to share the news.
During the difficult months when she battled brain cancer, Atlantans and the nation embraced her with an outpouring of love. And after her untimely death in 2021, at just 54 years old, her makeup artist and dear friend, Tamika Juniors, remembers Moore's beauty, but more importantly, her kindness and her heart.
My journey with her was just so different throughout our life together in 18 years of friendship, but in the end, I think her asking me to have this front seat, you know, for this last part of her journey was hard for me. But I knew I had to do it because you've always been the sister I always wanted and I never had. So I tried really hard to fill that role for what I knew a sister was because I have an amazing sister. And I wanted her to feel that love that I had for my sister and to feel that through me because we're not blood sisters, but we were sisters for sure. I remember after her having her surgery and the doctor's looking over her and he's like, who's that over there? You know, right after surgery. And she looks over at me and she's like, that's my sister. And we all lost it, of course.
The Atlanta Press Club is proud to induct Jovita Moore into the Atlanta Press Club Hall of Fame.
I just spoke to the great Jeff Hullinger. I feel amazing. You know, I see that piece, and I still find it very hard to believe that my friend Jovita Moore is gone. It was 2007. I'm in my newsroom in San Diego about to come to this wonderful place called Atlanta. And I'm a little bit nervous. Don't tell anybody. I get this email. And it says, at the header, it says, "Welcome South, brother." And I said, what is this? Welcome South Brothers. See, at WSB, those are our station letters right there. But in the building, it means something amazing. It means you're coming home. And it was by this wonderful woman named Jovita Moore. And she says, "Hi, I'm Jovita. We're gonna be working together, and you're gonna do great." And she reached out to me at that point, and I really needed that. And she was reaching out ever since that moment as well. I can give you all her accolades: Emmy Award winner time after time, Silver Circle inductee, mentor to so many young journalists, and people outside of the business too, who just wanted to be with Jovita Moore and have some of that magic. Mother, daughter, partner, friend, unapologetic fan of Jay-Z. Unapologetic. Let me tell you something. I loved to make her laugh. I did. I think she knew that too. But I never really thought about that until thinking about this. Jovita Moore was our on-air leader. Okay? When Jovita spoke, you listened. I listened. Jovita had this amazing gift and ability to look at you directly in the eye and still somehow be able to give you a side eye at the same time. It was uncanny, but you paid attention to it. You know, I was talking to my friend and colleague at Channel 2, Justin Farmer, and because he was with Jovita for moments at the end. And I said, Justin, what's your take on Jovita? What do you think she was thinking in her message? And he said, you know what, Fred, I just think that she was comfortable with herself. And what an amazing gift that is. And I think something we should all take from that. In this moment, in this time, to be comfortable with yourself. At Channel 2, every morning, I have the wonderful pleasure of broadcasting from Studio C at WSB. And I always say this, I always say that you may not be happy that I might be the first thing you see in the morning, but I absolutely love it. And from Studio C, which is now the Jovita Moore Memorial Studio, okay? And as you walk in, there's this picture of Jovita, along with a plaque, and there's a message from a viewer, and it says, "Oh, we will miss her professionalism and that smile." I miss it too. And as I walk in, I make eye contact with that picture each day. And I have two conversations with that picture. One, I imagine her saying, "You're doing a great job, Fred. You got this." And I nod, and I keep walking. The other conversation, she makes eye contact with me. She dips her head. I catch the side eye from the side. She says, "Don't mess it up." And every day, it's my goal to make sure that I don't. Jovita Moore is loved. Jovita Moore is missed. Jovita Moore was our leader, and we miss her to this day. I can't go out one day without somebody coming up to me and saying, "I miss Jovita." And my response is, "Me too." It is an honor to be presenting this induction. Oh, and lest I do not want to forget this. Knowing Jovita, the most important part about this night would have been the induction of Low Jelks, the very first black reporter in this city of Atlanta hired by WSB. We're going to hear a lot about him tonight, but we can start with the applause right now. That would have been what she would have been most impressed with tonight. And so it is my honor and privilege to present this induction to her amazing son, Josh. Please, if you can, that's polite. I'm the morning guy. I will yell at you. Please welcome Josh to the stage, please.
Thanks a lot. First, I want to start off with thanking the Atlanta Press Club and WSB and acknowledging all the other recipients. But now I would like to accept this award on behalf of my mother's accomplishments. And I feel like she ultimately deserved this award because she obviously worked so hard for it. She always said, like, to whom much is given, much is required. So she's basically saying, like, not everything is given. You have to work hard for it. So basically that just makes me want to, like, make me, like, achieve my dreams and work hard for everything and every opportunity. I'm always work hard for it. So, yeah, that's really it, but thanks again.
Josh, I met your mother once, and it's a funny moment. We were both at Costco in Dunwoody. We were both wearing ball caps, and we were both standing in lines for the free samples of Asian food and granola. And she had some very, very funny lines about how sorry it was that we were standing there cutting in front of people and elbowing people to get the free snacks at Costco. All right, let us move on to a life of great meaning and a pioneer. And we want to talk about Lorenzo Lo Jelks. And I want to welcome the presenter, Alexis Scott, of course, the veteran reporter who needs no introduction in Atlanta, as she is a member of the Hall of Fame, of course, and former Atlanta Press Club president. So, Alexis, if you would come to the stage right now.
Ordinarily, when a state university president makes a recommendation...
After he started at WSB TV in 1967, Lorenzo Lo Jelks became known as Atlanta's first black television reporter.
Earlier in these hearings...
But there's more to this story than just the distinction of being first. Lo Jelks had what all the other stations wanted: talent and quiet leadership.
I think in particular for Atlanta, it made other stations open their eyes and say, hey, maybe we ought to be doing the same thing. You know, their numbers are looking good. His reports are good. So maybe we should try. But Lo also helped to prepare another generation for the next step. Because everyone can be a local reporter, but not everyone can be a broadcast national reporter. So I think about how people driving through the city would see him and say, oh, I could do that. It's that old saying, if you can see it, you can be it. But you have to see people who look like you doing something that you're thinking about doing to let you know I really can succeed.
Yet even with his popularity, it took the station a while to show Jelks' face on screen.
The mayor is out of town today. And none of his
A 2009 documentary by the National Association for Black Journalists talks about the struggles faced by black broadcast reporters. As a colleague of Lo Jelks, WSB's John Pruitt says he remembers admiring his determination.
I do recall his work ethic, and he worked awfully hard. He had to learn to shoot film. He had to learn to report. He had to learn to edit film. He had to do all of those things. And he set about the task of doing so and did so quite well. I was extremely proud of his abilities to do that. And I frankly feel privileged to have worked with him during that time. And he had a great impact on me. And I have nothing but respect for Lo Jelks.
SCLC President Ralph Abernathy has indicated that his organization is keeping a close watch on the
One well-preserved memory of Lo Jelks' early career is a 1969 interview with civil rights leader Ralph David Abernathy.
There are many congressmen, particularly Southern congressmen, who aren't particularly friends of the civil rights movement. Do you expect Congress to act on this by this January 15th?
No, I don't expect them to act on it by this January 15th.
Ironically,
When he left TV in 1976, he went back to his first love of radio and ultimately returned to help run the student newspaper, the Atlanta University Center Digest. Lo Jelks graduated from Clark College, now Clark Atlanta University, in the early 1960s, but has carried with him a love of student journalism his entire life.
And it was May of 1970, and it was talking about a white university possibly merging with a black university, both state universities. As you probably realize, they were segregated at the time.
2 years ago, on this college campus, a concentrated student campaign began to get a black college president.
And he had the guts to go out and interview students on both sides, administrators on both sides, and then come back and put a perspective on what the issue really was. Now, that was a tough subject, if you can imagine, back in the 70s. So he was one of my inspirations to go into the education beat. We had beats at the time, and I knew, my mother being a teacher, but I knew that he really shined the light on the importance of education. And I think in many ways changed the landscape of race relations in Atlanta, certainly in Georgia, by his reporting.
The Atlanta Press Club is proud to induct Lorenzo Jelks into the Atlanta Press Club Hall of Fame.
So that was good timing, huh? I'm just so honored to be here tonight to recognize Lo Jelks. I've been an admirer of his for a very long time, so I'm very honored to do this induction presentation. But before we do that, I want to say a few words about his backstory. Lo Jelks, again, is the first founder, editor, and publisher of the AUC Digest, the newspaper serving the Atlanta University Center students for more than 47 years. Let's applaud that. Jelks is a 1961 graduate of Clark College, and he a veteran of the United States Army Special Forces. I didn't know that. He's a native of St. Petersburg, Florida, and he worked at worked in radio news as a reporter for several stations around the country before coming to Atlanta. And he was recruited to be WSB TV in 1967. I'd like to hear the backstory on that one. While desegregating Atlanta's television media landscape, Jelks also launched the Collegiate Broadcasting Group, Inc., which produced the highly successful program Campus Spotlight, highlighting highlighting the progressive dynamics of life and education on predominantly black colleges and universities across the country. Intrigued by the footprint of the Atlanta University Center, the largest private predominantly black college community in the world, Jelks and his then wife, Jane, attracted the economics and gained permission to build a carrier current radio station housed on the campus of Morehouse College at the time. The radio station was known as WAUC-AM, serving the AUC while providing meaningful opportunities for students to work and learn the business of broadcasting throughout the consortium of schools. Jelks, along with other staff, launched the AUC Digest, originally as a newsletter platform to promote the radio station. However, after an unforecasted success, the newspaper began to attract advertisers and new opportunities for growth as a Monday morning newspaper serving the AUC by penetrating the awesome market of students, faculty, and staff of the academic community. The WAUC-AM radio station eventually gave way to WCLK-FM at Clark, Atlanta. In addition to the AUC Digest newspaper, Lowe launched the National Association of Black College Broadcasters and hosted the annual Black College Radio Convention held in Atlanta for more than 20 years. The Black College Radio Convention allowed young black college broadcasting students from predominantly black colleges around the country the opportunity to engage with professionals in radio and television and network with record company and other communications executives and representatives. Lowe continues to serve as editor and publisher of the AUC Digest, one of the few institutions within the AU Center that remains a constant source of news information and historical viability. In addition to his induction tonight, Lowe was honored in 2018 at the 70th anniversary celebration of Cox Enterprises, as well as being honored in 2019 by the Atlanta Black Journalists Association in partnering with AIB TV and the network's documentary on pioneering blacks in local media. He has one son, the Reverend Ken Jelks, who serves as senior pastor of the Mount Tabor Baptist Church in Columbus, Georgia. One daughter-in-law, Dr. Nataki Jelks, assistant professor of environmental and health sciences at Spelman College, and one grandson, Kenyatta Jelks Jr., an 8th grader at David T. Howard Middle School in Atlanta. And I also want to say before we present Lowe for induction, is that Jocelyn Dorsey sends her love and regards. She had to MC another function tonight and couldn't be here with us. So without any further ado, let's welcome and present Lowe Jelks for induction into the class of 2022. He's coming this way. Not only can I not look, I can't see.
Wow, okay.
Love you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, one second.
I don't I don't know what to say. This has been so fabulous for me. And people who have believed in me through the years. I'm trying to figure out right now, we usually take the Morehouse Spelman Choir Christmas program, we usually take it and get it to as many stations as we can. But it's just one of the things that we have decided to do, and we've worked at that, and now it seems that, you know, we have sometimes 25 stations across the country carrying that program. But I'll tell you a story, and I want to make it quick because I know that some of you want to. I never applied for a position at WSB. When I got out of the Army, I wanted to be a part of the Cox thing. I just admired those folk. I got as far as the introduction from this young lady who was a receptionist. But let me tell you how this happened. Usually when I make these little talks, young people particularly want to know, how did you do that? How did you get into that? And I tell you, I was literally rejected. I don't think it was purposely done, but at that time, you couldn't get up to decision makers. And I tried, but it didn't work. So I was leaving, going to another station, trying to get a job, and I was stopped. Ray Moore stopped me, and apparently he heard some things about my radio work. As a matter of fact, I know that's how he got in touch, but that was my contact. You know, he said to me that we have made a commitment to get more black students and get more involvement from students. And he asked me to come to his office, and that was that. But that was a blessing. That was nothing but a blessing. I had some hard times at that station initially, but as time passed, we became buddies. We worked together, and we were dealing. And a couple of other stations started to do the same thing, and we all reached the same possible conclusion. You know, if they do it, we probably need to do it, or whatever. I don't know how we phrased it, but shortly afterwards, I think Emmanuel was employed at Channel 5. But I want to thank you for giving me this honor. I don't do very well when it comes to people congratulating you. There was a time when especially during my first year or two at WSB, when we were certain things I couldn't do. And I remember this one, let me give you this one little story, if I may. Got an assignment. I'm not sure if John was on duty that Saturday afternoon or not, but the Klan was having a warm-up session, I guess you could call it, and I was assigned to that. And I heard the editor say, listen, you don't have to do this now. I said, I want to do this. I'm a reporter just like the rest of us, and I don't see any reason why I can't do this. But I went in and I did this interview with this Klan founder. And you know, the thing about it is that he was nice to me. I didn't expect it, and I went and told everybody like I just got some candy from the candy store. But it worked, and I was very happy about that. And there were some other incidents. There were some other things that I experienced that I take with me all the time. Thank you so much for your attention.
From the Lovett School newspaper to the Harvard Crimson, from the AJC
This is BBC 5 Live
to the BBC, from Buckhead to Baghdad, and CNN to NPR, Mary Louise Kelly is destined to cover the world.
During, well, I think most of her time here, I may have been attached to the foreign desk. But both of us could see that the AJC as well as other newspapers were pulling back from foreign news coverage. It was just the expenses were just getting too heavy a burden to bear. So I made that move from foreign news back into Georgia politics. She went into radio. she left for Cambridge. I think just pretty much at the 1-year mark, got her master's in European studies, and then hooked up with the BBC and of course with NPR now.
Just back from reporting in North Korea, as you know.
Her voice is instantly recognizable on NPR's All Things Considered, and her intellect and composure are audible too, even when reporting on tragedies. Like the 2016 Orlando nightclub shooting.
Her calmness, her sense of proportion. I just think it was just what we needed that day. Because on the one hand, in broadcasting, broadcasting, as I've said many times, is a head and heart business. You at its best, you want to help people make sense of things. But you also, and I think this is particularly true of those of us in public media, we also want to help people process things in a constructive way.
Her colleagues consider her fearless. During one assignment while flying in a Black Hawk helicopter over Iraq, she famously accepted an emergency phone call from her son's school nurse.
Calling to say that my 4-year-old was sick. She was saying, I need to ask you to come get him. And, any parent who's gotten a phone call, it doesn't matter where you are, your heart kind of skips a beat. And I said, oh no, what is it? I cannot come get him. I'm traveling, I'm overseas, And she interrupted and said, no, I don't mean to bring him home. I mean, he is really sick. He's barely breathing. We need to get him to a doctor right now, or maybe to the hospital. And my heart stopped. And I was trying to answer her when the line died. My son needed me, and I was in a helicopter halfway around the world, staring down over the snarled traffic of Baghdad. And it felt suddenly, blindingly obvious that it was time for career Plan B.
She also took a break from broadcasting and wrote 2 novels while raising her family. She has dealt gracefully with recent hearing loss and refuses to back down from challenges, whether they be a high-profile interview with the U.S. Secretary of State.
I've defended every single person on this team. I've done what's right for every single person on this team.
Can you point me toward your remarks where you have defended Marie Yovanovitch?
I've said all I'm going to say today. Thank you.
Or helping listeners remain hopeful during a global pandemic.
I got to go with Mary Louise on the first abroad trip after, this first year of the pandemic. And we went to Geneva to cover the Biden-Putin summit. And just seeing Mary Louise glow being back out in the world again after this period of being kind of cooped up in our homes, having to cover the news sometimes from afar, to be with policymakers, to be in a place where news is happening. She's always the first person who's excited to take on the assignment to go report from North Korea or from Iran. And I think Mary Louise is happiest and at her best as a journalist when she is, helping bring the world to our radios.
The Atlanta Press Club is proud to induct Mary Louise Kelly into the Atlanta Press Club Hall of Fame.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you to the Atlanta Press Club for inviting me to do this. It's an honor to be here with you. I want to give you a little insight that you didn't get in the video about how Mary Louise got her start in journalism, okay? She did get her start right here, or we say right here, and she got it in Atlanta, or as we say, Atlanta, without any T's. And it's little known and long forgotten that she got her start by writing for the Lemons Ridge Bugle. Thank you, names mean everything. Which she and a friend of hers on the cul-de-sac on which she was raised started in Vinings. Okay, it was a periodical, I'd say once a month or so that came out, right, give or take, right? I'm grateful to the Reporter newspapers, Sammy Purcell, who I do not know, who wrote this in the Reporter newspapers, this wonderful little story about how she got her start. So I'm just cribbing straight from her, which is why we need big media, small media, all kind of media, okay? So the Lemons Ridge Bugle had contests for Recipe of the Month, for the Yard of the Month, and whoever the winner of the Yard of the Month was received a pink flamingo that Mary Louise would deliver and stake into the lawn. And they had plenty of breaking news. When you live on a cul-de-sac, you will have a lot of breaking news. Who's got a new dog, right? Who's lost their hermit crab, okay? And then after that, of course, there was no stopping her. Next stop was the student newspaper, love it. And then the natural progression, of course, to the Harvard Crimson, all right? I have gone back and looked at some stories from the next stop that she made, which was the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. First as an intern, and they will tell you when you come in there as an intern, we always say, don't expect to get hired, okay? We don't hire interns. They hired her anyway, okay, because she showed so much promise. And I looked at some of the stories that she wrote, and I just want to go over them for old time's sake, okay? She wrote in 1994 about the developer Tom Cousins buying East Lake Golf Club, the country club, and he promised to revive the status of this haven for golf lovers. And as I read further into the story, I find that there was a little bit of a problem, that two people, a couple, had purchased most of the shares of the club, and they weren't going to relinquish it, and they weren't going to reduce it, and other people wanted them to reduce their share of the club so that this could become a much more democratic situation there. And at one point, an attorney for Austin and Bird, who was opposing this couple owning so much, said, it's kind of like if you elected somebody president and they decided they'd enjoyed it so much that they just wouldn't step down. Where would you come up with something like that, okay? How could that happen? She covered the cleanup story from the 1994 Freaknik, and she got her first taste of life inside public media in 1993, long before she went to NPR, by covering a huge dispute among board members about the best way to run WABE radio and WPBA television. Mary Louise, I'll let Jennifer Dorian know that you're available for shuttle diplomacy the next time that happens in this market. I noticed she had a lot of double bylines with people we know. She propped up the careers of these people like Ken Foskett, and so Doug Blackman had a byline with her, Dwayne Stanford, all friends of the Atlanta Press Club, and she gave them all a great launch into what turned out to be great careers. There was one ridiculous story she had that just sort of, I don't know, challenges credulity. The Atlanta Hawks were thinking of leaving Atlanta, okay? And so DeKalb County, which she covered a lot of DeKalb County, I mean, she covered everything that had DeKalb in it. They made a pitch to the Hawks to try to lure them from Atlanta. Ha! As if any neighboring county could ever lure an Atlanta sports franchise to cross the county line, right? That was ridiculous. Her stories, many of them set in DeKalb, as I said, were laced with references to the rich and the famous and the tempestuous and the tawdry and the movers and the shakers and the heartbreakers. You know the names: Manuel Maloof, Mitch Scandalakis, Bill Campbell, Mary Margaret Oliver, Fred McGriff, Hosea Williams, Andrew Young, Leanne Levitan, Maynard Jackson, Cynthia McKinney, Newt Gingrich, what was his first name? Ben Cooter Jones, you know. These were all stars of, you know, of the political scene here, when they weren't doing time, some of them, which was a cheap shot because some of these are really good people, and I take that back. But is it any wonder, with that experience, that Mary Louise was more than prepared for Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, okay? She outsmarted him every which way. So she was running with the big dogs, and thankfully, she outran them. She made it to the BBC, to CNN, to NPR, where we all admire and appreciate her journalistic sensibilities and expertise. And the big difference that I noticed when she first started going on the air, and I did not know anything about her, was that she must have the most amazing Rolodex of people, you know, in national security and intelligence. And I, as a reporter and then as an editor, respect someone who came up from the grassroots and did the work. The number of bylines she had in the AJC and the year that she was there is phenomenal, okay? She did the work, and she gained the confidence that was necessary, and now you always want, as your editor of your paper or your anchor, to be someone who knows what they're doing, who says, here, you can get him on the line, call this number now, to the producer. And she's that kind of person. It's a real honor to be here tonight and to say that we have another opportunity in this city to pay our respects to another MLK, Mary Louise Kelly.
Oh, that was so much fun. Thank you. Thank you, Hank. Thank you to the press club. Thank you to my fellow inductees. Boy, have y'all given me a heck of an act to follow tonight. I'm so happy to be here with all of you. It's perhaps telling, I don't remember a single story that you just ran through, Hank, which says something about the staying power of our career, and that we may not remember the exact stories, but we do remember the lessons that we learned from them and move on to as we make our way. I did indeed grow up in Atlanta, right here. Did I get that right? My first real job was at the AJC. That was pushing 30 years ago, incredibly. But I keep finding my way back. Partly my family is still here. Partly Georgia just doesn't quit is the political story that keeps on giving. It takes something for somebody who has lived in Washington, D.C. for the last 20 years to say, I got to get on a plane, because there's like the biggest political story in the universe is not happening here, it's happening there. I actually missed the January 6th insurrection, covering it in D.C., because I was broadcasting from a motel room in Midtown Atlanta, because we thought the biggest story that day was going to be Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock and whether they would win, and that would determine control of the Senate. And here we are 2 years later, and we're waiting to see if Raphael Warnock is going to win and determine control of the Senate. So plus ça change. I think among the reasons why it is an honor to be here tonight is that I learned so many of the important lessons of how to be a reporter, how to be a journalist here. Among them, the obvious one, everybody in this room knows it: work hard, show up, work late, be there when nobody else is, ready to go. My mother, who's in the room tonight, Carol Kelly, who, she deserves that, believe me, who always told me I could be anything I wanted to be, and because she believed it, I did too. Thank you. She was cleaning out her closet recently, as you do, and among the gems that she unearthed was my very, very first front page byline, which I have brought with me tonight. I think we might have just seen a glimpse of it up there. This is the Atlanta Constitution, Wednesday, July 21st, 1993. And the headline, Roaring Stadium Fire Guts Booths Delays Ball Game. The byline, Mary Louise Kelly, staff writer, which I was so excited because I was a summer intern. I was straight out of college. They had said, we're not going to hire you. I was in the newsroom. I was amused to read, this is the third paragraph of my copy, the fire started about 5:55 p.m. and was dinner time viewing on local TV stations for thousands of area residents. It goes on. I'm thinking if the fire started around 5:55 in 1993, we did not have cell phones, we didn't have social media, somebody was running to a payphone to tell us about it, or we were listening to the police scanner. And that would have been me, because I realized when the big old, mature reporters who knew what they were doing, like Ken Foskett, who was like ancient and was like 30 or something, I think, had left, had knocked off for the night, I would be there monitoring the scanner and then ready to say, hey, put me in, put me in, put me in, I'm ready. As an aside, I was chatting about this with Ken before we walked in tonight, and he swears he remembers this story as a joint byline, and that he was in the stadium first. Alternative facts, I would just like to say. We have proof. My first byline. The other lesson, just to highlight, is something that I think about all the time in my work now, and it's something I learned. I did cover a lot of DeKalb stories because my beat was the DeKalb County Commission. I was based out of the AJC's Decatur Bureau when I convinced them to hire me. And I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, really, with no false modesty, I had no idea what I was doing. And was kind of moaning to my bureau chief, David Beasley, one night. I have no idea how to write the story. I don't know who to ask. No one's calling me back. I don't know what to do with it. I don't even know what questions to be asking. He looked at me and said, Kelly, just write what you know and how you know it. And I thought, yeah, I can do that. And so it was in the paper the next day, and the next day he said, find out a little bit more, and then write, tell me what you know and how you know it. We'll put that in the paper, we'll keep going. And we broke some good stories that way. I think about that, I hear David Beasley's voice in my head all the time when I'm in the middle of a tough live interview and trying to figure out how far to push it. When the White House has called my editor in and they're pushing back hard on a story that we want to broadcast or publish, and I just think, we just got to say what we know and how we know it. That's how we make our way. This paper, again, 1993, it is like a little time capsule, as you can imagine. There's coverage in here of a an attorney named Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who was in the middle of her confirmation hearings for the Supreme Court, which were presided over by the then chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Senator Joe Biden. Foreign coverage is Bosnia begs for aids as Serbs pound capital. It's a frontline dispatch from a country that most of us still knew as Yugoslavia. There's a double-page ad in here thanking Atlantans for flying TWA Airlines, the most comfortable way to fly, as you will remember it, and you will have to remember it because it's been 20 years since that airline flew anyone anywhere. My point being, a lot has changed since I was making every rookie mistake it is possible to make as a young reporter for the AJC. I'm so proud of that work and of the tools of our trade that I learned, because what hasn't changed is the drive and curiosity and responsibility that I feel, and I know that we in this room feel, for telling the story, for getting it to our readers, to our listeners, to our viewers. I'm proud of this honor tonight. It means a lot. I'm proud to stand with all of you. I'm proud of the role that we play as journalists in our democracy, in this state, in this country. Democracy which held this week, by the way. Hallelujah. We're still standing. Thank you. Thank you.
So, Mary Louise, I hate correcting you. It pains me to correct you, but I was the first reporter on the field at the stadium when the fire began, and it was me who ran to the payphone and called this guy right there, my boss, and said, "You're not going to believe what's going on." Ran back out with Ron Gant on the field, and we had glass exploding all over our heads, which is a piece of video that has lived in perpetuity. And that was quite an event for a lot of us, you and certainly me as well. Atlanta, nothing quite like it. All right, on to Russ Spencer, here we go.
Not focusing on the president, Democratic lawmakers, including
Russ Spencer can do it all. He has a degree in literature from Princeton, a family of 6 children, and 13 regional Emmy Awards, including a 3-peat for Best Anchor, for his work on Atlanta's Fox 5 channel since 1995. His is a welcome and familiar presence in local news, especially in the post-2020 reality.
He has high standards. He wants us to do a great job, but he does it in a way where no one ever feels that they're being belittled or called out or singled out. He's just a great resource for our producers, for, frankly, for me. I mean, I've learned a lot from him in almost 3 years of working side by side with him. As someone who started here in January of 2020, I did not have any idea that we'd be going into a global pandemic. But having someone like Russ to work beside, he was just such a guide and such a presence during the pandemic that really helped me to get my bearings in a really uncertain time.
I came to the station in 1996 as a producer, not really prepared for the demands of working in a market like Atlanta. And I was thrown into the fire quickly, producing the 6 p.m. newscast, which Russ was co-anchoring at the time. As he remains today, Russ was remarkably patient with me and a wonderful mentor in the newsroom. I learned so much from the experience of working closely with him in my first years at the station.
Before he arrived in Atlanta, Russ was in Central America.
The Sandinistas held the first truly democratic election,
reporting about the overthrowing of the Sandinistas in Nicaragua in 1990.
As many as 100 students from Chattahoochee High School are in serious trouble tonight.
Over the years at Fox 5, he has anchored newscasts and is the trusted interviewer everyone wants to talk to. from children at a Toys for Tots benefit.
We're going to talk right now to Catherine. You and I have been chatting, Catherine, and you have a gift. Your mom's not listening, so you can tell me all about it. What are you going to give?
I'm going to give her a star book.
To politicians running for office in Georgia.
How do you stay relevant with the issues that you care about?
And hosting the Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young debate series.
I'm Russ Spencer, evening anchor for Fox 5 in Atlanta, and you are watching the Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young debate series. Senior I-Team reporter.
But his colleagues revere him for other qualities, too.
I know everyone's talking about the consummate professional that he is, the great reporter, the one who asks all the probing questions. But what stands out to me is the person that Russ is. You know, I think about years and years ago at Christmas time when my son was looking and hoping to get this toy, the It toy of the season that was sold out everywhere. I couldn't find it on Amazon or eBay, and I was frantically trying to find it. And then Russ, who sat right next door to me, was on the phone, on the internet, trying to find that toy for me. So, you know, that's the kind of person he is.
Russ has a reputation for being an arbiter of facts and figures. He can remember everything. And he's likely to be the smartest person in the studio, but also the one who keeps the newsroom calm, cool, and collected.
About a month ago, I was wearing a blue blazer and I was getting ready to go on the set. And there was a commercial going on, and you know, my story was coming up next. Went to button the blazer and the button popped off. And so I scramble around and I find a paper clip and I tie the paper clip to the button, to the hole, and I run it to the set and I sit down and it pops off again. You know, do you think the viewers will see this, will notice this? And Russ, as calm as can be, says, I think the viewers will notice more that you're nervous than they will that button on your jacket. And I went, he's right.
One of Russ's first co-anchors was Brenda Wood. She remembers when he took the chair next to her and his service to his Atlanta audience for more than 2 decades.
Now, we didn't know everything that first night about you, but we would come to learn quickly what a great journalist you are, what a great family man, and what a great quality person that you are. You have proven all of that and more to all of us who have seen and worked with you.
The Atlanta Press Club is proud to induct Russ Spencer into the Atlanta Press Club Hall of Fame.
The man who selected him was Mr. McEntee right here. Bud McEntee, former Atlanta Press Club president and Emmy-winning news director, now with AR&D. And you are here to introduce Mr. Spencer.
Well, first thing I have to do is change glasses. This shows you how age has worn me down to a certain degree. Tonight I have the honor and the privilege to introduce one heck of a gifted journalist. That's a journalist with a capital J, no apologies. Russ Spencer's an outstanding news anchor. He's an outstanding reporter. He is a very gifted writer. He is a master storyteller. He's one of the most skilled interviewers in television news. Watch a Russ Spencer interview. Doesn't matter who's being interviewed. Doesn't matter whether it's live or recorded. Russ's interviews are different. Yeah, he asks the poignant questions. He covers the basics: who, what, when, where. But it's Russ's ability to focus on the how and the why that draws out the most meaningful responses. Most importantly, he is an outstanding listener. His best questions, I gotta change glasses again, are based on what the person he's interviewing just said. Russ doesn't just conduct interviews. He crafts conversations. Conversations that are memorable and often newsworthy. In the old days, we used to say, we're looking for an anchor who can command the anchor desk. He does so, but he does it with ease and just the right amount of energy. When news is breaking, Russ Spencer's at his best. Why? He's unflappable. He's in control. He's calm, he's curious, and compassionate, and dedicated, determined, and dependable. Let me share a few things about Russ you might not know. He's been anchoring the news at WAGA-TV, Fox 5 for more than 25 years. God, he's old. 1995, pre-Olympics. We remember those days. WAGA had just become a Fox affiliate the year before, after years of being a dominant CBS television station. We were expanding in staff and in scope. We needed more reporters, more photographers, more editors, more producers. And we needed a news anchor. A strong anchor with storytelling skills and journalistic chops. Someone who could eventually become one of the faces of the franchise. A Chipper Jones, a Ronald Acuna. I would have said Freddie Freeman, but we move on. I was seeking someone who could help lead a team that was already strong and established. People like Jim Axel, Brenda Wood, Jeff Hollinger, Lisa Ram, and Amanda Davis. My 2 cents, when Russ and Amanda were on the air, they were a hell of an anchor team. And my friend, I think she's looking down right now. And I know how proud she is of you. I wish she could be here. You know, Russ didn't have much primetime anchoring under his belt when I hired him. He was anchoring the morning news at a Denver TV station. Not that there's anything wrong with the morning news. Can you say good day, Atlanta? You know, I remember a consultant who asked me, Bud, are you sure you want to go with a guy who has limited anchoring experience in a major market? After all, he added, this will be one of your most important hires that you make as a news director in a top 10 market. Well, we offered Russ the job. He jumped in to the thick of the challenge. He was flawless live, in the field and on the anchor desk. Just watching him report and anchor from stories such as the Dunwoody tornadoes, remember them? Days on end, he showed tremendous skill for telling stories. And he told those stories with compassion and understanding. Sort of like a guy named Pruitt, I know. Russ knows the news. He's a student of history. He's fascinated with what makes us all tick. He's reported from all over the world. Some crazy news director I met sent him to such places as Cuba, Bahrain, Shanghai. And he tells me he originally wanted to be a foreign correspondent. So he moved to Guatemala as a freelance reporter. He wanted to learn to speak Spanish. He learned to speak Spanish. He sharpened his reporting skills. But most importantly, thank God, he fell in love with his beautiful Lisa. Talk about a class act. If you have the chance tonight, do yourself a favor. Say hello to Issa Spencer. It'll make your night. The Spencer clan is quite the ticket. 6 fantastic kids and 5 wonderful grandchildren. If Russ ever wanted to brandish an anchor ego, somehow I don't think Issa and the gang over there would let him do it. And frankly, that sense of being grounded in what's truly important make Russ Spencer's anchoring and reporting so genuine, so believable. I'll close saying, I know I got it right in hiring Russ Spencer. And as for WAGA-TV, it got its Chipper Jones. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the privilege and honor of presenting Russ Spencer.
Wow, he sounds like a pretty good guy. I'm not sure I recognize him, but he sounds like a really good guy. Bud, thank you very much. I've never been more humbled by somebody's kind words, honestly. And coming from someone who demanded quality and was such a taskmaster, wanted us to be our best all the time, to hear those kinds of words for you means more than I can possibly say. Thank you very much. And thank you for hiring a 34-year-old. You did take a chance, and for sticking with me. I've been extraordinarily fortunate. Big thanks to Randy and to Scott and to Courtney and Brenda and Lisa for their kind words as well, and for taking a time out of their Saturday to go and do it. That was very generous of them. Thank you to the city of Brookhaven for being here tonight. That's what I was going for. You guys, the most enthusiastic in the whole crowd. I am really grateful and humble for this recognition, especially given how much respect I have for my fellow inductees. When Maria Saporta and Laurie Strauss asked me if I would be interested in this, that was how they initially put it to me. I was kind of amused. Does anybody ever say no? Do they? Okay. My second thought was, oh my God, you're old now. You became Jim Axel and nobody told you, which is a fine thing to become. My second thought after that was when I saw the list of inductees, well, Mary Louise Kelly is much younger than I am, so it's not an age thing. But I get that you're Hall of Fame material. We sort of glanced on the Mike Pompeo interview. You need to Google it and see the whole thing for yourself and the aftermath for yourself. She showed Mike Pompeo how to find Ukraine on a map because he didn't think that she'd know where it was. But her very respectful interview with him was a masterclass in how to hold the powerful accountable. Well done. It's what I aspire to do, and you did it right there. I remember the first time I met Rebecca Chase Williams. It was 25 years ago at a charity event with Dick at the Piedmont Driving Club, and I was so starstruck by the ABC correspondent. I could barely speak. I guess because I wanted to be an ABC correspondent. And she was so beautiful and so gracious. I'm sure that when I walked away, she turned to Dick and said, "Do you think he needs a doctor?" It was a little bit embarrassing. But Dick and I had already become friends. He was an icon by the time I got here in 1995. And he was always so quick with a smile and sort of behind the scenes about his time as a news director, a columnist, the leader of the Georgia Gang, and of course his labor of love working with the Dunwoody Crier. In fact, he hired my son Stephen to be a reporter at the Crier when he was in high school at Marist. And he took my son seriously and took his work seriously, which was an extraordinary gift for someone of my son's age from someone with Dick's experience. And then by chance, January of this year, I don't spend a lot of time on social media, even though I'm supposed to. I apologize. I saw a photo, a beautiful photo of Dick cradling his new granddaughter, and I sent him a quick message. And he responded almost immediately. and asked about Stephen, who's now in medical school. And then he wrote this, and I asked permission to share it with you. He said, "The granddaughter is beyond awesome. I'm here in Arkansas in hospice, and I'll share with you, his daughters are here, that he said he was so glad that you kidnapped him." That was his word, and made him come. "Not to be sappy," he wrote, "but it's a fascinating test of faith. Old life surrounded by new. I know how the movie ends, but I'm riding with both eyes open." And he died the next week. I really loved your dad, and he was really kind. You know, I didn't know Jovita especially well, although I thought of her every day as I looked at the 6 p.m. ratings from the night before. Ruefully, as you might imagine, because she beat us more at 6 o'clock than we beat her by a long shot. We did have an opportunity one time to present together at the Emmys. She was funny, alas, I was not, but I will tell you, from my point of view, she had smarts and charm for miles, and Josh, I'm just so sorry that you've lost your mother, and I'm sorry to all her colleagues at Channel 2 for the loss of such a bright soul. And Lo, I told you when I met you over the summertime that I was mildly ashamed that I had never heard your story before. How could I have not heard the story of such a fantastic pioneer? But my family, which is way too large, and his, which is also large, his son Ken was there with his children. We sat down for a long time, had a great conversation, and I just want you to know how much I appreciate what you've done to make Atlanta journalism far better than anyone could possibly have imagined 50 years ago. Thank you for paving the way. You know, like all of you in this room, I'm going to make this quick, but you know, I've paid a lot of dues and have a lot of people to thank. My first job was in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and I had a chance to start there at a time when most of the photogs were still shooting with Frezzi cameras, shooting film, because those were the cameras that worked the best. The RCA TKs were kind of hit and miss. And being down in the basement, watching them go through the reels, the way you saw in Lowe's piece, and watching them cut and splice the film by hand, and listening to them tell stories, those were the guys who taught a 22-year-old English major how to be a reporter. They still live in Scranton. They're in their 70s and 80s. Jimmy Keenan, Dave Jones, Joe Butash, I think of them all the time with a lot of gratitude. I did leave there and go to Central America, and I did meet and fall in love with my wife. She was gracious enough a few years later, after I had moved back to Market 102, I kind of worked backwards for a little while, in Eastern North Carolina. She brought her 2 children, and we got married. They instantly became our children, and I was covering primarily the first Gulf War. Camp Lejeune was in our coverage area, and it certainly deepened my already profound respect for the men and women of the military. And I had a chance at Marine Corps Air Station Cherry Point in Havelock, North Carolina, to fly for 45 minutes with the Blue Angels while I was learning to fly a Cessna. I mean, that was the most fun that I can discuss in polite company. It was just really, really amazing. We went relatively quickly to Denver, as Bud said, and I was doing the 6 a.m. news and dayside reporting. Pro tip to any young people in the audience, don't take a job like that. I mean, I got up at 3 o'clock in the morning, did the news from 6 to 7, and then reported dayside. Well, you know how that goes. You got to get all sides of the story. There were most days I was there until 4, 5, 6 in the afternoon, right? You can't go till the story's finished. So when Bud's assistant called and asked if I'd like to audition with Brenda Wood, I said, I'll be right over. And it was the luckiest and the best decision that I ever made. I'm just so grateful to my colleagues at Fox 5 for the decades of support. I'm grateful to the other anchors and reporters who have consistently made me look a lot smarter than I am. It has been just an enormous privilege. I do want to make mention of the fact that we had in Denver a baby the week we got there and a baby the week we left. Maria and Danny, and both of them are here tonight. I'm so pleased to have you here. When we got to Denver, Allie, one of the young girls who had come from Guatemala when she was 10, met and ultimately fell in love with a guy she met in the 6th grade. And they're now married and have 3 boys who are with us tonight. Phil is her husband, and Ford, Troy's asleep, and I don't blame him. It's partly my fault, obviously, and Ben. It's not a competition, but they are, in fact, the best 3 grandsons on the planet. So I'm so glad that you're here, and thank you for your raucous support and inappropriate support over there in the corner. I would be remiss if I didn't mention Amanda Davis. It was beyond a privilege to work with her as long as I did. 17 years we shared the anchor desk together. We did the calculation. I think it was something on the order of 8,000 hours of TV, and she was generous for every single one of them. And Lisa, too. I don't know if Lisa is here tonight, but now I get to listen to her voice, best voice in Atlanta journalism every morning on NPR. Best laugh, too. And if you've ever heard her sing, boy, she can sing. Thanks to all the people at Fox 5 who've been there as longer than I have, which is a long time. You know, Dale, Randy, Dana, Mindy, Doug, Angelique, Portia, Morse, Deidre, Buck, Jeff, Amy, Chip Zeller in sports. You know, you don't get people of that kind of quality to stick around that long unless you're taking good care of them, and that's what's been happening. Huge thanks to the Atlanta Press Club for including me in the debate series over all these years. It has been one of the real privileges of my career in Atlanta, without question. Especially that little one a couple of years ago with Raphael Warnock and Kelly Loeffler. We have relatives in La Paz, Bolivia, who watched that on live TV. That was a big. Can you believe, as you say, that we are back in this thing again, and that it could all depend on Georgia again? We are so blessed to be in a place where so much news is being made. Finally, to my family, thank you for loving me and allowing me to love you back. Thank you for always making me proud. Thank you, Issa, for shepherding our children while I was working nighttime for decades. I know that wasn't the easiest thing. And we have one left at home, Ella, who has special needs, and you'll understand when I say she gives more meaning to our lives than any job ever could. Again, I'm humbled and very grateful. Thank you very much.
Congrats, Russ. All right, now our final tribute this evening, we will posthumously be honoring 2 great journalists who also happen to be married for a very long time. If you've lived in Atlanta for any period of time, it is hard to imagine that both of them are no longer with us. They were both life forces. Dick Williams, as Russ alluded to, he was something in local media. He was amazing. He was unlike anyone else. Rebecca Chase Williams, an amazing career, amazing talent, moved on to politics, incredible lives, impactful lives here in Atlanta.
Rebecca Chase grew up in Illinois and arrived in Atlanta in the late 1970s, where she worked at the Atlanta Journal and WXIA.
And the winner is Rebecca Chase,
winning 3 Emmys before becoming a national correspondent for ABC in 1979.
Hi, Rebecca. How you doing?
There, she covered political campaigns.
In the early hours of yesterday, wave after wave of British Marines.
The Falklands War, poverty,
ABC's Rebecca Chase is in Decatur, Georgia.
In order for families to hang on to their houses.
And even the 1998 tornado that swept past the Dunwoody home she shared with fellow Atlanta journalist Dick Williams and their 2 children. Not realizing then she would later become the mayor of Brookhaven in 2015. Steve Smith remembers the storm well.
The tornado came through Dunwoody about, midnight maybe. And the assignment desk in New York called Becky, who lived in Dunwoody, of course. And they said, Becky, we need you to leave right away and get over to Birmingham to do live shots for GMA. And Becky said, well, I'll go as soon as I can, but the tornado's going over my house right now, and I'm stuck in the basement. And I will get up and get in my car and go as soon as I can, but I got to wait for this thing to go past.
Dick Williams grew up in Kansas City and became personal, not political pals with future U.S. President Bill Clinton while studying at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. He worked as news director at TV stations in New Haven, Baltimore, and Miami before landing in Atlanta in 1976.
The best crew of reporters and photographers in Atlanta
To run the news operation at WXIA-TV, Channel 11. Then, a few years later, becoming the city editor at the Atlanta Journal, marrying Rebecca Chase and bringing up a family. And later, purchasing his own paper, the Dunwoody Crier, while he was passionate about his family and basketball.
I think the public is going to side more with...
One of his proudest accomplishments was being the bow-tie-clad conservative voice on the long-running public affairs show, The Georgia Gang.
I always say that, there are different reasons for wearing a bow tie, and George Will wore a bow tie, and a lot of people thought Dick wore a bow tie because he wanted to look like George Will. And I always said that Dick wore a bow tie for the same reason that Harry Benton wore one. And Harry Benton was the head of security for Henry Ford and had to take on the UAW as a strike breaker, and he wore a bow tie because if you get in a fist fight, your adversary cannot grab your tie and hold on to it and pound you to death. Dick was pugnacious by flavor, but he wasn't a hitter. I mean, it always amazed me, most conservatives tend to be gun guys. Dick kept a baseball bat under his bed, and I think he probably could have repelled an invader as successfully with a baseball bat as the rest of us with a handgun.
Together, Dick Williams and Rebecca Chase Williams were media royalty in Atlanta and loved covering the politics of the day. They were married 40 years. Rebecca died in 2020 and Dick in 2022. Colleague Chuck Dowdle believes their pairing and success were meant to be.
I know that when he met Becky, I knew that he was going to marry her. Even though he had already moved to Atlanta at that point, was working at WXIA-TV, and I believe met Becky there. But I knew he was going to marry her. Here was a lady that was his journalistic match. And Dick was all about journalism. I remember his pet phrase was, good journalism is good business. And certainly that is the truth. And he believed very strongly that, if you did the right kind of stories in the right manner and they were fair and balanced, as we like to hear the term today, then, it would pay off in ratings, and it would also pay off in advertising.
The Atlanta Press Club is proud to induct Rebecca Chase Williams and Dick Williams into the Atlanta Press Club Hall of Fame.
Russ, I'd like to thank you for your kind words, your shout out to the folks in the city of Dunwoody, but I think they're actually here for Rebecca and Dick. Thank you to the Atlanta Press Club for extending this honor to our dear friends. Dick was one of the most loyal friends anyone could ever know, if you knew him. He stuck with you longer than you may have deserved. He did, though, have a penchant for showing up stylishly late. we tease him sometimes that DW time was at least 20 minutes later than CP time. But it didn't matter because he could write a column, and a great one, in minutes flat. Dick gleefully showed up one day at my office door to proudly announce that he'd written a column, start to finish, in 17 minutes. And those columns, no matter how fast he wrote them, were as entertaining as they were informative. Dick was passionate about journalism, but I've never met anybody so passionate about basketball. He'd venture far and wide across the metro region, refereeing high school basketball games. How he ever got there on time is a mystery. But while he was late to many things, he was on time for Rebecca and his daughters. And this award is on time for Dick and Rebecca. No one was more dedicated to journalism and civic engagement than Dick and Becky. And it's hard to imagine a more loyal friend and colleague. So on behalf of the Atlanta Journal Politburo, Rick Allen, Paul Al, Don O'Brien, Cynthia Tucker, and that entire gang on the 8th floor of 72 Marietta Street, and the many panelists on the Georgia Gang over the years, including Rick Allen, Bill Shipp, Tom Houck, Bill Kent, Theron, Alexis, Martha Zoller, and others, I'm honored to present this award to Chase Williams Cooper and Claire Williams Stevens. Please come up.
Good evening. On behalf of the entire Williams family, thank you to the Atlanta Press Club on this incredible honor. We all wish they were here to physically receive this award, but we'll just have to do instead. For those of you who may not know us, I'm Chase, this is Claire, and we are Dick and Rebecca's daughters. In true Dick Williams fashion, we wrote a few words on the plane right over here. Not 17 minutes, but about that. Individually, they were incredible journalists, but together they were the ultimate power couple. Smart as hell, and not in an annoying way either, which made you not want to even hate them. You liked them even more because of that. Beautiful people inside and out, truly cared about others, and seekers of the truth.
It was always so fun to watch TV with them because very frequently someone would be reporting the news or commentating on politics, and they both would say, "Oh, I remember so-and-so. Did you read their book yet? Was it good? Meh." Or in Dad's case, "I gave so-and-so their first job." Or, "I actually had to fire them." Yikes.
Or when friends would come over and see the Emmy Awards they won individually and together and say, "What are those?" "Oh, those are Emmys. Your parents don't have those?" And let's never forget that first time in New York City, casually meeting Peter Jennings for lunch and thinking at 10 years old, this really isn't that normal. Then later in life, 2020 came knocking, and Mom got some really nice airtime reliving both the Ted Bundy and the Jim and Tammy Faye Baker stories that she had covered years ago.
Their accomplishments nationally and locally were unmatched. They made it seem normal. They made it seem easy. To be working parents and to have the individual careers and achievements that they did is downright incredible. Chase is a working mom, and I'm a soon-to-be working mom, and we truly don't know how they did it. But we do know behind both of them was so much passion, so much drive, and the willingness to keep learning.
They instilled in both of us at a young age to never stop learning. As we celebrate them and all honorees tonight, we hope that we all continue to open our minds and our hearts as we seek out the truth in all aspects of our daily lives and never, ever stop learning. Thank you for the overwhelming love and support over the last 2 years. It's proof that these two were something really special. Dad, true story, thanks for not firing Mom. Because if you didn't trust your gut, none of us would be here tonight celebrating your great life of achievement. Congrats, guys. You did it. We love and we miss you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to introduce now Jewel Wicker, the Atlanta Press Club board member, co-chair of the APC Internship Committee and freelance entertainment and culture reporter, to talk about the Atlanta Press Club intern program and some closing remarks, too.
Good evening, y'all. I promise I'll be brief, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about our internship program. You know, listening to Mary Louise Kelly's story about starting as an intern at the AJC and then going on to get a job there. We, I think, have had some interns recently who have actually been able to do that. And even if you don't go on to get an internship right away, you know, I started as an intern through the Press Club and interned at Atlanta Magazine. I still work there as a freelancer. They're my friends, they're my colleagues, they're my board members. It really is a connection that you go on to cherish throughout the years. So, you know, at the Press Club, every year we award several students internships at places like the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Atlanta Magazine, Atlanta Civic Circle, Georgia Public Broadcasting, and WABE. It's very competitive. We get students from throughout Georgia colleges and beyond, and we are very fortunate that we are able to give them a living stipend. You know, as the cost of living increases, we know how important it is to pay interns. We're very blessed and fortunate that we get to continue to do that, and it's because of the support that we get from our members and from our sponsors. So I just want to thank you all again so much for doing that, and thank you again for coming out tonight, breaking bread with us, honoring our inductees, and you know, just having a great time this evening. And thank you, Jeff, for being an amazing host. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your night.
I know I'm getting older when I'm limping up these steps. You know, that's one sign, along with the gray hair, that I've been around maybe too long. Speaking of time, that is it for us tonight. And we want to congratulate all of the inductees, all of their families, the Atlanta Press Club that does such a great job with the debates, with this program, with journalism in our city. Our thanks to the Southern Company, also Coca-Cola. And drive safely tonight. What a great night. Thanks.